Hey, welcome back, listeners, to another edition of Interventions and Attentions. I'm Brad, your podcast host, coming in for another weekly episode of Interventions and Attentions. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining me. I'm here solo today. I don't have a guest. Wanted to put out another episode, though, this week, and we're going to call this episode 2.5, Season 2, Episode 5, Why Good Teachers Leave. Sitting around thinking about a topic to talk about that I could kind of talk about on my own to my listeners. I know you're not all educators. You probably come from different walks of life, but I'm an educator. And one thing that, really is on my mind lately, and it's been happening for years now, but why do we see good teachers leaving the world and profession of education? Why are so many good teachers leaving? What does that mean for the rest of us? And I'll tell you lots of little scenarios and things that I can relate to when it comes to this topic. Just trying to find people to teach is really hard these days. There's not as many college students going into education. A lot of people are coming from outside sector into education, but not that many. And here's, I'm going to set the tone for the episode right away. According to the National Educators Association, NEA, 44% of teachers leave the profession within the first 5 years. I've seen this firsthand. Young teachers burn out before they get past year 5. Maybe people coming into the world of education, just finding out it's not what it's cracked up to be. A couple weeks ago, Seth Carter, I'm going to refer to him another time in this episode later on, did a year of teaching from the private sector. He's an entrepreneur, came into education for a year, and then left. Now, I wouldn't say he was burnt out. I don't think he didn't enjoy it, but he had some other opportunities and took the reins and went. But he's not alone in that venture. 44% of teachers leave within 5 years. That's crazy. How many other professions do we see that high of a turnover rate? Probably not very many. So we're going to talk about that today, and we're going to just see, it's not just the stats. It's about your reflections and, ideas that you have as well. I'm going to share my reflections and stories and give you my 2 cents, I guess, when it comes to thinking about what is causing the turnover in education and why we're losing good teachers. There's lots of different factors, and I'm going to throw some stats at you today. So think about this one, the reality of teacher attrition. Let's start with a stat. Teacher turnover, 16 to 17% annually, which is double the overall workforce average of turnover of 9%. This comes from the Learning Policy Institute in 2022, so it's not real recent. I'm wondering how that compares to 2025. But again, annually, 16 to 17% of our teachers leave the profession. There's a turnover rate of 16 to 17%. Overall, in the workforce, only 9% turnover. What's happening? And it's not just new teachers. Experienced teachers are leaving too. Why is it? What's happening? Let's compare that to nurses. I'll pick nursing because Sherry, my wife's a nurse. We talk about this a lot. A little bit higher turnover rate in the nursing profession, which doesn't surprise me. 27% annually turnover rate for nursing. This comes from the NSI Nursing Solutions Institute. Probably high stress would factor into that. I feel like educators have high stress rates too. It's different stress, obviously, the nursing. I don't want to even compare it. 2 different things. But I think stress definitely is probably a number 1 factor in any profession when it comes to talking about turnover and leaving to look for something new. So let's start at the beginning and be reflective for a minute on my part. What made me want to become an educator in the first place? If there's such a high turnover, and I would say when I started, the turnover rate was not what it is now, but why did I go into education? Well, I'll be upfront and honest. I actually went into business first, and I think I've mentioned this before. I started out as a business major at Indiana University in Fort Wayne. My dad was in insurance for years. Later on, went into real estate. My brother had graduated from Indiana University, Fort Wayne as an accountant. I thought that's what I was going to do. It's like, hey, let's be a businessman. And when I started out, I got into my second year of classes. I had a stat class, a business stat class that I failed. And that was just the beginning courses. And I thought, if I can't handle a business stat class, there's no way I'm going to graduate with a business degree. And so then it got real fast. It's like, what are we going to do here? What are you going to just go get a job, out in the public? Are you going to finish a degree? Are you going to try to keep going with business and see how that goes? Maybe it'll turn around. Very lost and confused for a little bit there. Well, during that same time, my dad had kind of talked me into substitute teaching. He's like, hey, you've got some days where you don't have classes. Why don't you go out, make a little extra money, use your time wisely. It's a good part-time job. Try it. I went into a fourth grade classroom at Topeka Elementary, Westview School Corporation, half day, fourth grade on a Friday. That would be a tough gig for, normally. I walked away loving it. And I can remember the drive home. It was probably about 10 or 15 minutes from where I lived at the time. And I was really scared because I wanted to change my major. I knew from that moment that was my calling. That was what I wanted to do. But to tell my parents, like, hey, I'm going to punt here and change majors. Are you going to support this? And when we had that conversation, they were very supportive. They said, yeah, if this is what you love and this is what you think you're going to love and you're going to do it the rest of your life, then do it. Go for it. So I switched majors. It put me behind a little bit. It actually, took me another 4 years to graduate. It was almost like starting over. So I did undergrad in 6 years. I've talked about this before. It wasn't easy, but I did it. And that's, so why did I go into it? Going back to the question, why did I go into education? I fell in love with it right away. From a half day of substitute teaching, fell in love with it. I continued to substitute teach while I was taking my classes. A, it gave me good experience. B, it gave me some money to go along the way. But again, it just solidified why I was doing what I was doing and where I needed to be. Through that process, though, from the beginning till now, have I ever personally thought about leaving the profession and what stopped me? I will say yes, absolutely. I've thought about it several times. There was a point in my career about 6 years ago where the corporation that I was working in at the time was going through some major restructuring, closing down 2 elementary buildings. Administrators were not guaranteed a position. I didn't know if I was staying or leaving. I didn't have any stake in the game. I didn't know until my superintendent walked in and said, you're going to stay and you're going to be the intermediate principal. Walked over and told my assistant principal that she was done. She was gone. That was really nerve-wracking and scary. And through that process of not knowing where I was going to land, I was seriously thinking maybe this is not where I'm supposed to be after almost 20 years at that point. I was closing in on that timeline quickly. And I started kind of soul searching, like, can I go to a university and work? Could I teach at that level? Do I go back in the classroom? I'd been out of the classroom for longer than I had been in the classroom. I don't know that I could have done that because things had changed so quickly. When you leave the classroom and become an administrator, you're still a teacher, but you lose, in my opinion, how do I want to say it? You kind of lose that knack for teaching, and it changed a whole lot from when I was in the classroom. If I went back into the classroom today and tried to teach the way I was teaching back in 1997 to 2003, kids wouldn't learn. They wouldn't learn as well as they should learn because I was not using best practices then. It was very much open up the teacher's edition. Okay, we're on lesson 3 today. Everybody open their math books to page 46. I'm going to show you how to do it. You're going to go do it. I'm going to grade your homework. Boom. It wasn't a bad model, but I wasn't really focused in on best practices. And again, I was young. I only taught 6 years in the classroom. I was still trying to figure that whole thing out. But going back to the original question, there's been times, yes, where I've thought about what I could do outside of being an educator, but I never come up with an answer either. I don't know what I would do. I feel like this is my calling. This is what I've poured my heart and soul into for almost 22 years now, or I guess this is my 22nd year of just being an administrator. Tack on 6 more years as a 5th grade teacher, and you're pushing 30 years. It would be hard for me to leave unless I just got pushed out and had to go do something on my own. I don't know what that would be. I don't know what that would look like. And we'll talk a little bit more about that through this process, I guess. But let's get back into the topic of burnout. Luckily, I don't feel like I burn out. There's times where I maybe feel a little bit of that, but I have to say, as an administrator, I think administrators are in a lot better place than teachers are. Teachers are on the forefront. They're right up on the front lines. I can see why the workload and the burnout gets to them as quickly as it does. Here's another stat. 85% of teachers say that workload is unmanageable, and that is from RAND from 2022. I hear this a lot. I see this a lot. I see the stress in my teachers. Some handle it better than others. Some put on better fronts. But when it comes down to it, workload is getting tough, whether that is due to class size, the hours that teachers have to put into prepping and planning instruction and lessons, grading papers. And that doesn't matter if you're a kindergarten teacher all the way up to a senior biology teacher. The workload is crazy heavy for teachers today. And then you tack on all the different personalities that enter into your classroom and sit in the little seats in front of you. You're talking kids that come from trauma. You're talking kids with learning disabilities sometimes, or emotional disabilities, or just anxiety that they come to us with nowadays. These are things that we didn't see as much 25, 30 years ago. So you tack that onto all the just teacher stuff that they're doing, the workload becomes quickly unmanageable. Teachers average, another stat for you, 50 plus hours a week in their workload. And I would say that's on the minimal size. I'm going to guess it's closer to 60 to 75 hours for most teachers. Obviously, you can't get that done in a workday. That means things that are going home, things that are getting done on the weekends, which takes away from family time and other things. Again, we wonder why teachers are getting burnout and why the workload is so crazy. It's out of control. So, we talk about the joy of teaching kids versus the noise around teaching. All the quote unquote stuff that sucks the joy out of us, that workload, is really contributing to the burnout and taking away from just the joy of teaching. And I think that's one of the big differences. When you look back 25, 30 years ago, you were able to just teach. Yeah, you had to grade papers and there was other things. And I'm sure if we jumped into the time machine and jumped back to about 1985 and talked to some teachers, they would tell you that their workload is heavy, but it would not look and sound the same as the workload of my teachers today. I think they would have a greater love for teaching, and I'm not trying to compare that to my teachers. I think my teachers have a great love for teaching. I have a great love for education and teaching. But at that time, back in the day, I feel like you were able to just do that. You were just able to teach and enjoy your kids and being in the classroom and not have to get burdened with the workload that we have today. So what parts of the job drain me or my teachers the most, and which still give us energy? Again, I'm lucky because coming from the admin side, I don't feel like I'm getting drained like my teachers are. Mine looks different. It's a different type of workload. It's a different type of stress. Mine, I feel like, is more manageable, and I don't feel like I let it get to me as much. But for teachers, it's tough. It's that stuff. It's the busy work, the things that don't pertain directly to the teaching in the classroom. It's the paperwork. It's the data collection. It's the meetings. It's the case conferences. It's the professional development. It's even the collaboration. For as much as we love collaboration and need collaboration as teachers, it's another thing that takes away from doing what I just want to do, which is, hey, just let me teach my kids. Let me be with my students. Let me teach my kids. But we can't just, as easy as it would be, we can't just work in our own lanes or stay in our own lanes or work in what I would call silos, like if we could just stay in the classroom all day long and not have to do anything but teach kids, that would be awesome. But we can't do that. It's not how it's set up nowadays. We have to do all the other things and stuff. So, absolutely, it would make our jobs easier, but all those other things are necessary and part of our teaching world today. Absolutely they are. So is it the work itself that's burning teachers out, or is it everything else that comes with the work? I would say, in my opinion, all the other stuff that comes with it. I don't think teachers mind the work of teaching. The planning, the instruction, the teaching of the instruction, the teaching of the lesson. That part's what they signed up for and what they love to do the most. It's what they're really good at. It's all the other stuff that comes with it. And if we could just take that stuff away, I know, such a complicated word, stuff. If we could take that away, I think we could help our teachers manage the workload and the stress and maybe find that love and joy again for teaching. Let's talk about maybe comparing teaching to other professions for a minute. I did that at the beginning, looking at nursing a little bit, but burnout across other fields, like, again, healthcare is one of the high ones, law and law enforcement, social work. Those professions, according to the Mayo Clinic in 2023, all have a burnout rate of over 50%. And think about those people. Healthcare, huge need for healthcare, obviously. Law and law enforcement, huge need. Social workers, huge need. But yet they have the highest burnout rate in compared to other professions. So how do we get along? How do we help these people? It's not just educators, obviously, that are burning out. It's some of the people in the most needed professions are struggling the most. So what makes teaching unique? I think a lot of it is that constant emotional part of the job. We get so tied to our kids, just like nurses get tied to their patients. We feel that the love of the labor, the responsibility to teach these kids, and they're ours for 36 weeks, 180 days. They're our kids. They're ours. And we feel that sense of love, responsibility to teach these kids, and it puts a lot of pressure. The teachers put a lot of pressure on themselves to make sure their kids are learning the things they need to learn, that they're being taken care of, that their needs are being met. And I do think that adds a lot of stress and workload onto the teachers as well. They own that, and you times that times 20, let's say 24 to 28 kids in a classroom nowadays. That's a lot. It's a lot. So, longevity of teachers, like what this whole episode is about, is the lack of longevity. I feel like longevity for teachers nowadays is less celebrated, unfortunately. Like we still honor years of service and things like that. But what impact or incentives is there, or that we can provide to help retain teachers? Obviously, wages and money is always number one in my book. I don't feel like anybody makes enough money from what they should. Cost of living is up, but our wages don't get up. But again, that's the first thing that anybody can do to attract, incentivize, and keep good workers, is to pay them what they deserve. Just honoring them for, hey, you've been here for 20 years, good job. Yes, we love that, and the recognition is great, but it does it keep us here? I don't know. And again, the days of having somebody teach for 30 years in the same classroom, or even the same building, or even the same corporation, I don't know that that's a thing anymore. You're looking at 5 years, 6 years, and then they're either leaving, they're going to other corporations because they can jump up on pay scales a lot of times that way, and they have to play the game. And that's what's scary, because it takes away from consistency to our schools and our classrooms and our kids. And honestly, I feel like that's probably one of the big reasons why schools struggle as much as they do. You get a good teacher, and then boom, they're gone on to something different or somewhere new. And then they're there for 5 or 6 years, and boom, they're on to something else, or they jump to administration or whatever. I mean, it's this constant turnover cycle. How are we going to get any better when we're starting all over again? It makes it so, so difficult. So everyone has work-related stress. We talked about that. That's a given. How is teacher stress different from the stress of people that I know in other professions and other jobs? It's not. I mean, I think we all agree stress is stress, but what contributes to that stress looks a little different from time to time, and job to job, and profession to profession. The stress usually comes from things that, like we talked about, don't really pertain to my main job or what my duties are. It's all that extra junk and stuff that doesn't directly relate to what I need to do every day to earn my paycheck. So I wonder, do other professions celebrate longevity the same way we used to in teaching, or we still do in teaching? I feel like we've gotten away from this to some extent. We celebrate years of service, like I said, but what else could we do to not only celebrate but incentivize teaching? Well, like I said, money would be great. I don't know. I just feel like there's some things that we need to maybe come to the table and be like, okay, what can we do? If we can't do more money or higher wages, which is what a lot of schools are struggling with right now, thanks to some mandates across the state and other legislation type things, what can we do to keep our teachers around? Maybe what can we take off their plate? What kind of things can we make it easier for them in the classroom or just day to day? How can we help support those teachers? That's a tough question because, again, limited resources means limited outcomes. What parts of the job drain me the most? Well, we talked about that already. I'm not going to go back over that one again. But, again, I'm lucky because I don't feel like I get drained like my teachers do. They're the ones that are doing the hard work, in my opinion. I'm just here to support them. What are some of the things that make teaching today harder than it was, say, 30 years ago? Well, some of the immediate things, like I just said, we have less resources, which means sometimes less staff. So that contributes right away to larger class sizes. We have some classroom sizes this year of 28 kids, and that's in kindergarten. Now, we've also put extra adults in there. We've hired paraprofessionals to lower the ratio of students to adults, but that's, it's not the best solution, but it's a solution and a strategy that helps. It's a lot better than just having the teacher 1 on 28. So again, large class size makes the job feel harder. Again, more complex student needs. We talked about that. Students that come from trauma, learning disabilities, developmental delays, parent and community pressures. All those things contribute to making the job feel harder. And just, I think, an overall decline for respect for teachers in our culture. That's according to the Gallup poll of 2022, just noticing that the respect that John Q. Public and our communities have for teachers nowadays, a lot of times they're more about trying to get the teacher or say it's your fault that my son's not learning or that there was a behavior problem today, versus supporting them and just giving them the respect that they want and deserve. That totally makes the job feel a lot harder than it did years ago. And then obviously politics, cultural wars, things like that. There's a lot more of that stuff that's being brought into the school by both students, parents, community, and even our own teachers sometimes bring that stuff with them that we didn't have 30 years ago. So those all contribute to making it harder to do what we need to do every single day. So why is it more common for teachers to stay in that same grade level or same school for 30 years? Why is it? I think my wonder is it more because of that stuff? Like if we could take some of these things away, would people stick around and, start the job and finish the job and retire from the job that they started, or at least in the building that they were in? Because, you get moved around from grade level to grade level. That's not uncommon, or less. It's less uncommon today than it was 30 years ago, probably. But, I had an aunt, Aunt Carol, shout out to Aunt Carol Burkhead. I believe she taught first grade for East Noble Schools in Wayne Center Elementary from the day that she was hired to the day that she retired. That's pretty uncommon now. And shout out to her for giving it all she had for those 30 plus years. But again, we're not going to see that anymore. Those days are gone. And I think it has to do with the stuff. I don't know how else to say it. It's just the stuff. What's changed? Is it the job? Is it the students, the parents, society as a whole? I'd say yes to all those. And it's going to continue to change. That's inevitable. That's, it's ongoing. It's evolving. All those things are going to always change. And we have to roll with those changes and try to figure out how we can adapt to it. But would I even want to stay in this role for 30 years total? Yeah, for me, because I'm close enough to the end. I was doing the math today. I'm only 8 years away from 30 years as a principal. I think that's right. I'm in year 22. So, I'm closing in fast on retirement. It seems like it's a far way away. And if you ask my financial advisor, he's telling me, yeah, Brad, you got a ways to go. But really not. I'm closer to the end than I was the beginning. So would I want to stay? Yeah, because like I said, what else would I do at this point? And I just can't answer that question because I don't know. I don't know what I would do. Probably sit at home and, I don't know, drive driver's ed and bus, I guess, because those are the only two skills I have at the moment other than being a principal and an educator. I don't know. It's just such a tough question. How do you work around that? So I guess maybe, are there solutions? Like I said, we can try to take things off a teacher's plate. That's just one small thing. But what are some retention strategies that are out there? Well, I do think schools and school corporations can look at things like providing new teachers with mentorships, hooking them up with teachers that are experienced, that have been around for a while, and can help support them and make some of that stuff a little more manageable, make workloads more manageable. Give them true collaboration. Even though we said that sometimes the collaboration can take up your time, it's still something that teachers need, whether they want to admit it or not. And I need that as an administrator. I reach out collaboratively to my peers in my area. We meet monthly with area elementary principals just so we can have time to sit and talk and debrief about the things that are going on in our buildings and how to handle certain things. And it's amazing what we can learn from one another and how we support one another. Obviously, competitive pay, compensation, number one, needs to be better. Professional development is always a good thing. And just giving teachers leadership opportunities. Even though they don't want this all the time, we have some great emerging leaders, some that really need to be thinking about making that jump to administration because of how good they are. And we need to keep growing those people and urging them to stick it out. Here's another stat for you. This is from LPI 2016. Schools with induction and mentorship programs reduce turnover by 50%. How cool is that? So right there alone is a fact that if we can give good mentorship programs, good onboarding, we can keep people from leaving the profession by up to 50%. That's awesome. We need to continue to focus on those kind of strategies to help retain good teachers. Culture and leadership matter more than the programs, and I will say that till the day I die too. Culture and leadership matter more than programs. A teacher is going to stick around because of the culture and because of leadership way over any kind of curriculum or program that's happening in the building. So that's really important too. And again, wages, you got to make the money. You want to make good money. You got to, if you want to support families these days. So what's one small thing a leader can do to make teachers feel more supported? Well, what I try to do for my teachers is just be there for them. I try to check in with them throughout the day. At the end of the week, I do a week ahead communication. And for the last year or so, I've been putting out a little weekly check-in survey. It's not mandatory. So far this year, I've had one person do it, and that's okay. It's just at least gives them the opportunity and avenue to reach out and say, this is how my week was. It was good. It was bad. I need your support. Come check in with me. I don't need your support. I'm hoping, as you know, if they do need that support, they reach out either through that or just come to me. I have a very open door policy for my teachers and staff. I want them to come lean on me when they need it. And I try to take that feedback and use it to support them or help me grow better as a leader. That's, the only way I'm going to grow is to get that feedback from them as well. Obviously, if I could change a system level thing for my teachers, would be higher pay. That's the one thing. If I had any control over it and I could wave my magic wand, raises for everybody. What keeps me personally committed to education and even knowing how hard it is, it's all I know. I'll go back to Seth Carter. He was on here recently. He's an entrepreneur. He's been in a classroom, left, came back. And one thing he said, though, that does make me think, like if I do ever decide to leave, he said educators are so successful when they go out into what I'll call the private sector or real world outside of education. Their training, their work ethic really equips them to be great at other professions. So there is hope if you want to leave education. A lot of people will hire you quickly knowing that you come from that area because you have leadership skills, you have strong work ethic, and they want to hire you. So I'm not promoting that, but I'm just saying, there's no lost hope, I guess. So, excuse me. Wow. Let's end on a light note. Let's jump into some rapid fire questions for Brad here. This has been kind of a heavy topic, not a real uplifting topic, but again, one that I felt it is important and I wanted to just weigh in on today and give you some of my thoughts and ideas about teacher burnout. So Here's the rapid fire question number 1. Brad, what's the strangest place you've ever graded papers? I'd have to say bathroom. I'm pretty sure that I can remember, trying to maximize time and efforts and would grade papers while doing certain things in the bathroom. We won't go into any more detail than that, but probably the strangest place that I've graded papers before. If I could ban one phrase I've heard in education meetings, what would it be? This one. I used to love it and I loathe it now, but the phrase, it is what it is. What does that even mean? What is it, and it is what it is? I don't get it. I understand why people say it, I guess, like, hey, it is what it is, you got to just deal with it or whatever. But then when you really kind of break that phrase down, it's like, what does that mean exactly? It makes no sense to me. So don't come at me with it is what it is, even though I do catch myself saying it once in a while. My go-to snack or drink after a long school day, something crunchy or sweet. Lately, chocolate animal crackers, the bomb, so good. Don't eat them later in the evening next to your wife who has a huge problem with mouth noises. Just going to leave that there. Sorry, Sherry Taggart. Love you to death. What classroom gadget or tool from the 90s or 2000s do you secretly miss? I got to tell you, love the chalkboard. Loved it when I went to the teacher store and bought my little aluminum chalk holder so you didn't get your hands all chalky. Loved that thing. Loved my chalkboard and overhead projectors. Now, I will say, being a left-handed dude and writing on an overhead projector was a mess. I'd come home every day with ink on my left hand. But that was techy back in the day, man. Look at this. I can write on this and it shows up on the screen that I had to pull down. How about that? Pretty cool gadgets for the 90s and 2000s. Which is harder, getting a kindergartner to line up or a senior to turn in homework? Well, I haven't really had to deal with seniors other than my own kids. And I know that can be difficult, but I'm going to tell you all day long, getting a kindergartner to line up and stay in line all day, harder than anything else in the world that you've ever had to do. If you don't believe me, come on in. We'll go down to the kindergarten with 28 students in the classroom in 2 of our sections, and we'll put you to work. If teaching had exit interviews like other jobs, and they actually do, what would mine sound like? This was a tough question. I think I would just leave it at this. I came, I saw, I conquered. Boom. Drop the mic and walk out into the sunset. All right, guys, we're pushing 32 minutes. Let's wrap this up. Turnover's high, but there are solutions that exist. Here's your personal takeaway. Teaching is tough, but the why is still worth it. And I love our teachers, and I love all teachers out there that are putting in the hard work every single day to teach our kids. Because if we didn't do it, who would? So thank you, educators, administrators, everybody that's tied to it, paraprofessionals, custodians, nurses, cafeteria workers, secretaries. We can't do all the things that we do for kids without all of you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's keep putting our why at the forefront. But I will say, here's my call to action for our leaders and our parents, our fellow educators. Let's reflect on how we can help keep those good teachers in the classrooms in this profession. How can we make it better? And who knows? I'm guessing maybe the reason I'm still here is that I haven't figured out how to say no yet. Last week's episode, check it out. And with that, folks, let's tune up the radio, the music. Let's have you tune in again next week as we come back with another episode of Interventions and Detentions. Keep joining us. Keep chiming in. Check us out on social media. Leave me some thoughts and feedback, maybe some ideas of episodes and topics you want covered. Keep tuning in to Interventions and Detentions, where the real learning begins. See you next time.